Did you know that taking birth control can lead to depression? A new study suggests that taking birth control when you're a teenager might actually be linked to depression as an adult. It sounds crazy, right? We're about to dive into all the nitty-gritty details. We'll look at the science behind it, talk about what's going on in your body, and figure out what this actually means for you or maybe your daughter, sister, or friend. I'm Viva, and you're watching Peak Life, a show where we explore ways to live our best lives through health, fertility, lifestyle, and more, inspired by the natural approach of the PeakDay app. Before we jump into the new research, let's set the stage. For years, studies on birth control and depression have been all over the map. Some have found a link, others didn't. But what if the truth depends on when you started using birth control? Here's where things get interesting. Scientists have long known that adolescence is a critical time for brain development. Your teenage brain is like a construction site. Lots of remodeling going on, especially in areas that control emotions and mood. And it's not just neuroscientists who are concerned. More and more women are speaking out about how hormonal birth control has impacted their overall health. From mood swings to low libido, the list of potential side effects is pretty long. Now let's dive into the heart of this study. Published in the prestigious Journal of Child Psychology and Psychiatry, researchers from the University of British Columbia, led by Christine Anderl, examined data from over 1,200 women in the United States. They found that women who started taking the pill as teenagers were 1.7 to 3 times more likely to be clinically depressed as adults, compared to women who started taking birth control pills as adults or never took them at all. Let's break down those numbers. The study states, and I quote, "Compared with women who had used OCs during adolescence, women who had never used OCs were less likely to meet the criteria for MDD within the past year in adulthood. And so were women who only started using OCs in adulthood. In simpler terms, if you started the pill as a teen, your odds of having depression as an adult were about 70% to 200% higher than if you'd never taken the pill or started it as an adult. That's a significant difference." Now, I know what you're thinking. Couldn't other factors explain this? The researchers anticipated this too. They used a statistical technique called propensity score analysis to control for various factors. This method helps researchers rule out other factors that might affect the results. By doing this, they can focus on how using birth control as a teenager might lead to depression in adulthood. They looked at many different factors, including age at first menstruation, age at first sexual activity, education level, marital status, body mass index, diagnosis of endometriosis, use of other hormone-containing medications, pregnancy in the past year, smoking history, sexual orientation, and current birth control use. Even after controlling for all these factors, the link between teenage pill use and adult depression remained strong. The researchers state, "These effects remain stable when controlling for a large number of potential confounders using propensity score weighting." But wait, there's more. The researchers wanted to be absolutely sure that early sexual activity wasn't skewing the results. So they did a separate analysis looking only at women who had their sexual debut in adolescence. The results? Still the same. They found that women who had used OCs during adolescence showed a significant increase in 1-year prevalence of MDD, compared with both women who had only started using OCs as adults, as well as women who had never used OC, both in the unadjusted and propensity score weighted models. Now, it's time to note that this study shows a correlation, not necessarily causation. The researchers themselves acknowledge this, stating, "It is important to acknowledge that the correlational nature of epidemiological data precludes causal conclusions. However, they also point out that the consistency and strength of the association, even after controlling for many potential confounding factors, suggests that this link deserves serious attention and further research." This study isn't standing alone either. It builds on previous research, including a large-scale prospective study from Denmark that found use of hormonal contraception, especially among adolescents, was associated with subsequent use of antidepressants and a first diagnosis of depression. The study's first author states, "Our findings suggest that the use of oral contraceptives during adolescence may have an enduring effect on a woman's risk for depression, even years after she stops using them." The study isn't standing alone either. It builds on previous research, including a large-scale prospective study from Denmark that found use of hormonal contraception, especially among adolescents, was associated with subsequent use of antidepressants and a first diagnosis of depression. Women who started taking the pill as teenagers were about 3.2 times more likely to be clinically depressed as adults compared to women who'd never used oral contraceptives. They were also about 1.85 times more likely to be depressed compared to women who only started taking birth control pills as adults. Let's break down those numbers. The study states, and I quote, "Compared with women who had used OCs during adolescence, women who had never used OCs were less likely to meet the criteria for MDD within the past year in adulthood. And so were women who only started using OCs in adulthood." In simpler terms, if you started the pill as a teen, your odds of having depression as an adult were about 220% higher than if you'd never taken the pill, and about 85% higher than if you'd started it as an adult. That is a significant difference. All of this paints a compelling picture. The age at which a woman starts using hormonal birth control could have long-lasting effects on her mental health. But why might this be happening? That's where we need to dive into the fascinating world of neurobiology and hormones. To understand why adolescent use of birth control might lead to increased depression risk in adulthood, we need to explore the intricate dance of hormones and brain development that occurs during the teenage years. Andrel says, "Adolescence is an important period for brain development. Previous animal studies have found that manipulating sex hormones, especially during important phases of brain development, can influence later behavior in a way that is irreversible." First, let's talk about what the pill does. Oral contraceptives contain synthetic forms of estrogen and/or progestogen. These synthetic hormones work by suppressing your body's natural production of estrogen, progesterone, and testosterone. The researchers note, oral contraceptives, or OCs, contain synthetic forms of oestrogen and/or progestogen, while suppressing endogenous production of oestrogen, progestogen, and testosterone, and may therefore alter a woman's vulnerability to depression. Now, during adolescence, your brain is undergoing significant development, especially in areas that control emotions, decision-making, and mood regulation. This period is characterized by what scientists call neural plasticity. Your brain is particularly sensitive to experiences and environmental inputs, including hormones. So let's see how pumping your body with synthetic hormones can affect how you respond to stress. The hypothalamic pituitary adrenal axis, or HPA, plays a crucial role here. This is a complex system involving the hypothalamus and pituitary gland in your brain, and your adrenal glands. It's responsible for regulating your stress response, mood, and many other bodily functions. During adolescence, the HPA axis is still maturing. Animal studies have shown that exposure to synthetic hormones during this critical period can have lasting effects on brain structure and function. As the researchers explain, critically and especially during important developmental periods such as adolescence, gonadal hormones may contribute to the organization of brain structures and thereby generate enduring changes and differences between individuals. Improper development of the brain's stress control system during adolescence can lead to long-term issues, potentially increasing the risk of mood disorders like depression and anxiety in adulthood. Let's break this down further. Estrogen, progesterone, and testosterone, the hormones suppressed by birth control, all play important roles in brain development. Estrogen influences the growth and organization of neural circuits, particularly in areas involved in memory and emotion. Progesterone has neuroprotective effects and influences the development of brain regions involved in social behavior. Testosterone plays a role in the development and spatial abilities and has been linked to mood regulation. By altering the levels of these hormones during a critical period of brain development, birth control could potentially lead to long-lasting changes in brain structure and function. The researchers suggest these hormone-induced long-term changes involve systems that are known to be dysregulated in depression, such as the hypothalamic pituitary adrenal stress axis and limbic regions. It's also worth noting that the synthetic hormones in birth control are not identical to the ones your body produces naturally. They're often more potent and don't fluctuate in the same way as natural hormones. This constant exposure to high levels of synthetic hormones could potentially overwhelm or desensitize hormone receptors in the brain, leading to long-term changes in how the brain responds to hormones. Compare this to your natural hormone cycle. When you're not on hormonal birth control, your body goes through natural fluctuations of estrogen and progesterone. These ups and downs are actually beneficial for your brain and body. They're what you're biologically designed for. Some researchers even suggest that this natural variability might be important for mental health. A study on menopausal women found that greater variability in estradiol levels was associated with depressive symptoms, highlighting the complex relationship between hormone fluctuations and mood. It's important to note that while this biological explanation is plausible and supported by animal studies, more research is needed to confirm exactly how adolescent birth control use might lead to increased depression risk in humans. The researchers of our main study emphasize this, stating, "Our findings reveal an urgent need for future studies to address whether there is indeed a causal link between use of OCs and other forms of hormonal contraception in adolescents, and the risk of developing depression and other psychopathologies in the short and long terms." Now, I know this information might feel overwhelming. You might be thinking, great, but what are my options? That's where PeakDay comes in. PeakDay is a natural fertility awareness app that helps you understand and track your natural cycle. Instead of altering your hormones, it teaches you to recognize the signs your body is already giving you about your fertility. Here's the kicker. When used correctly, fertility awareness methods can be as effective as the pill for preventing pregnancy. A study from the University of Heidelberg found that the symptothermal method, which is what PeakDay uses, has a 98.2% effectiveness rate with perfect use. But it's not just about postponing pregnancy. Understanding your cycle can help you tune into your body's natural rhythms. Many women report feeling more in sync with themselves, having better moods, and even improving their relationships. Your monthly cycle is filled with signs about your health. Your body gives you signals that are difficult to interpret without a tool like PeakDay. It creates a map of your monthly biomarkers and provides both a calendar and chart view of your cycle. Some women and their doctors have even been able to spot conditions like PCOS or endometriosis simply by looking at their chart. PeakDay has both a free version and a 60-day free trial for their paid tier. You can search for PeakDay on the App Store or visit peakday.com to learn more. All links are in the description. Thanks for watching, and I hope this helps you live your peak life.